Thank you for your interest in the Henry County Chamber of Commerce's Candidate Conversation Series. We have reached out to candidates in contested races throughout Henry County, Georgia, from congressional to General Assembly to county. While this election cycle is unusual due to the COVID pandemic, we appreciate those candidates who have taken the time to speak with us about those interests important to Henry County residents and employers. Remember, it's your voice, it's your vote. Together, we can continue to make Henry County a great place to live, work, and visit. Please vote.
Hello, I'm Barbara Ingram, Director of Communications with the Henry County Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you here today for our candidate forum. For over 50 years, the Henry County Chamber of Commerce has been a voice and advocate for the business community, and we are committed to ensuring a favorable economic, legal, and regulatory climate for the business community. And that's why we have invited Mr. William Harris to join us today. He is a candidate for the Georgia State House District 73. Thank you for joining us, William.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, let us start out today by making sure our viewers understand Henry County as a part of District 73. Can you give us a little perspective there?
Great. So the most notable parts of our districts are going to be the city of Hampton, and then the Atlanta Motor Speedway, which I believe that you guys are very focused on at the moment for some future development work, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes, and very supportive of everything that's going on that end of Henry County. The district does extend to other counties, correct?
Yeah, so we also cover North and West Spalding County and a small portion of kind of the southeastern edge of Fayette County, which is where I live.
Oh, okay. Very good. So let's talk about the small business priorities for Henry County. I'm sure that you're familiar with some of our challenges. So what would be your top 3 priorities for small businesses if you're elected to that 73rd district?
So then whenever I have forums with Henry County, they're very different from other forums and conversations that I have with other counties. The number one thing that we're coming across right now is infrastructure, specifically traffic infrastructure. There are solutions that we have as a state in terms of traffic solutions. Probably the easiest thing that we can do is open access to public transportation, which also increases business opportunities for the county and for this general area as well. Everybody here knows that we're building Henry County, especially along the interstate corridor, a lot. And so we need, like an adequate response to this explosion of economic growth. It's great, but we're starting to leave some people behind in terms of transportation. And so that's something that we absolutely have to work on. And I know that's important to Henry County. That's always the number one thing that comes up with Henry County.
Absolutely, and it has been for some time. But there was something you just mentioned that I'd like you to expound on is public transportation. That's a solution I don't hear quite often. So can you tell us exactly what you mean by that?
Public transportation, ever since I've been a young boy, I used to live in Griffin before I moved out to Fayette County. So I've been in this region my entire life. Ever since I was a young boy, we've always had conversations about MARTA transit stations coming down to as far down to Spalding County. This is something, I know a lot of people don't necessarily like it, but we actually have a lot of economic data that suggests that a lot of companies that move into places like Henry County prefer places with public transportation, because now these companies that are moving in, they don't have to worry about transportation needs for their employees. They just know that their employees are going to start to show up on time, right? And then we also see that property values go up whenever we start to have a more robust public transportation network. It's great for business. People can't work if they can't get there.
And that's a very good point. And I look forward to expanded conversation on that. We'll have to look into that further. but transportation and logistics, we've had some huge expansions coming in 2021 of new business in the transportation and logistics
Mhm.
established industries in Henry County, and those are our key economic strengths. And those strengths minimize the burden of taxes on our residents, financing our growth. It's a delicate balance to promote growth as well as resolve these transportation issues that we continue to struggle with. How do you do you recommend that we should be encouraging building and development? How do you strike that delicate balance with promoting growth and development and our ongoing issues with transportation and infrastructure?
So transportation is just a side effect of growth, right? But it's also kind of the part of policy and governance that we don't really want to talk about so much because it's boring and it seems wasteful. But our infrastructure, specifically for traffic and roads and even walking, is just great because we need that, especially like you hinted on earlier. We're starting to get a lot of talks of inland ports. We're starting to get a lot of conversations about industry that relies almost exclusively on vehicular travel. And so it's important that we make that a priority. And going back, I'm always in favor of growth. We have an ever expanding population, especially in Georgia. We're one of the fastest growing states in the union. If we're not having an adequate amount of good jobs that come from that, then we're going to start to see people's livelihoods reduce. We see this a lot, like with larger cities as well, like with Detroit, right, where people leave, and so now there's not this growth, and then it just further makes the economic depression for that local area worse. And so absolutely, I'm in favor of growth. It really helps out everybody.
Well, growth is good, and we all rejoice when we see new businesses and new jobs coming to the county. But I want to stay with that struggle that we continue to have and that infrastructure matching, because Henry County is very unique in this particular area of the problem of transportation, with the 75 corridor, the residential community being right there along the corridor, mixing with all of the businesses. So what role do you want to play as the representative for the district of the 73rd district? What role do you want to play in helping Henry County fix these problems of transportation that we've been dealing with for so long? And they don't seem necessarily to be getting to on the fast track of resolution. That's what concerns me. There's a problem and there's work to fix it, but what can you do to speed this process?
So in my capacity and role as a future legislator, I am limited because a lot of this is more focused on the local county level. And so the best thing that I could do is advocate for and fight for the county. And so it's really getting with the Henry Chamber of Commerce, getting with county commissions and everything like that, and more specifically asking, what do you need me to fight for you for? Because fundamentally, I don't live in Henry County. I love Henry County. My job is going to be to represent Henry County, but I can't represent Henry County unless if I see what Henry County needs representation for.
Well, that's a good point, that you would be collaborating and working with the county level government, the Henry County Chamber of Commerce, and all of those advocates for growth, development, and the well-being of our citizens. I'm glad to hear you say that. So with that said, what will you do to work with the Henry County government? Where do you see your role, and how can you have a face with the leaders of the county?
So the best thing that I could do is make myself accessible. In all honesty, I want to make myself accessible to everybody. I don't necessarily even prioritize the Chamber of Commerce over a regular person.
Mhm.
I just don't happen to have this time open, and you're here. But if somebody else wanted to have a conversation, I would have a conversation with them as well. I feel like as a representative, we have to make ourselves available to the people that we represent. And the best way that I can do that, to answer your question, is just to make myself accessible, to actively seek answers to these questions. Because again, I'm not an expert on Henry County. You're more of an expert on Henry County than I am, right? And it's important that we seek advice and direction from experts.
Well, as our 73rd, as our representative, and we're part of that 73rd district, I believe almost all of Henry County is, you are probably aware that the Henry County residents approved a SPLOST, a 5-year SPLOST that's estimated to collect over $200 million, and approximately half of that is going to go to transportation-related projects. With the fact that you're our representative, what steps will you take to ensure that our transportation needs are being addressed, the ones that those funds were allocated for?
And so again, this is really limitations of my own legislation because I'm a vote of a body. But I would advocate for, like, I feel like you're directly asking me for, like, if I would directly advocate for Henry. And this is a situation to where, again, it's obviously very important to Henry County. It's the number one thing. And so because it's so important, and because we can also just see the economic and general need for this. I've been driving up 1941 going up to Atlanta my entire life. Like, that's just the thoroughfare that we would take, and you can just see the expansion going that way. And so we really do need those strong voices who fight for and advocate for additional funding to make sure that the funding is used correctly and stuff like that. But, again, more importantly, it's listening to Henry County itself and following y'all's lead.
Well, I guess that's the line of questioning I'm getting to, because you represent the residents of Henry County, and the residents of Henry County did vote for that SPLOST.
Yes.
And voted for half of it to go toward transportation. So I guess I'm pushing to know if you plan to get involved and become a Henry County expert.
Oh, I would love to. The COVID pandemic has been fun campaiigning. But also, yeah, and also just in general, I'm somewhat of a different kind of candidate, I feel. It's like I have a full-time job. I'm not a single parent, but I am a solo parent from the afternoon because my wife works at nights. And so I am lacking on time at the moment. We do have plans for whenever we win this election. And so it's not going to be as bad of a time crunch. But I want to be an expert on Henry County, just like Spalding County and Fayette County. But even then, even whenever I am an expert on Henry County, I would still have to defer upon the leaders of Henry County so that I can follow y'all's lead with what kind of fight you really want me to take to Atlanta for you.
So considering the county government and your ability and desire to work with the county government, is there any part of our county government that you think requires more attention going forward?
It's not necessarily my place to say that, really. I'm very local oriented. I'm very kind of small community oriented. And in all honesty, I don't necessarily believe that myself, a citizen of Fayette County, should really have a lot of say over Henry County. That's your community. I want to represent you, but it's your community. It's your leaders. I don't want to butt in on that for you.
At that level of the county government. But we can welcome you into having a collaborative interface with our county as
That's
our
fair.
representative.
Yes, I do want to be that role. I would love to represent you, but I don't necessarily think that it's my role to lead you. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. What are your favorite places to visit in Henry County?
So in Henry County, I used to go to Saki Steakhouse a lot up in Hampton, but it got burned down. And I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's like the Yumi or Yummy steakhouse there now.
Okay.
And so Hampton's always been a very fun place for me to go. We also used to, of course, do a lot of scouting activities at the racetrack. In terms of McDonough, Stockbridge areas, I really don't get out there too much. It's always been a little bit further away from where I would normally go.
Well, we've definitely got to get you into Stockbridge and into McDonough as our representative of the 73rd District. You probably are familiar with many of the small businesses in Hampton, but as a representative of the entire county, do you have any small businesses that you can name, or any small businesses supporting you now as a candidate that you could
No,
speak to?
I haven't necessarily been seeking individual support from businesses. I am focusing more on individuals.
And tell us a little bit about your focus. I believe I read that you consider yourself a representative of the hardworking citizens of the district. Did I read that?
But not to contrast with business owners, because business owners are also working as well.
Correct.
But I do try to tend to flavor my campaign more towards the working class people of the district. Absolutely.
Well, what made you motivated you to decide to step out and run for this seat to represent the district?
It's an interesting story. I've always been politically motivated. It's something that I feel like I'm knowledgeable on. I feel like I have required expertise for something like this. So like I have a degree in business administration. And so it's not necessarily that whenever I talk about economics, I'm, just making things up. And so I have an education with business, and I am politically motivated. So I've always been like, maybe one day I'll run. But this particular year, I was on a Facebook group. In this Facebook group, it said this district is likely to flip. If somebody is going to run for it, we need to know by this weekend. I was contacted on Sunday, told, had a very long conversation with a recruiter at that moment, and I went and qualified on a Wednesday. And so the main reason why I ran is just because whenever it comes with politics, opportunities are given to people, right?
Right.
I feel like I have a level head. I feel like I would be a great legislator. I feel like I'm authentic. I feel like I want to do what's best for people, data driven and everything. And so I figured I would be a great legislator. And so I committed fully into running. And that's just the story of how I got here.
So you talked about being a solo father. How old is your little one?
I have two children. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. Yeah, a little bit of an age gap, but they have a great relationship.
So one is in school and one is in home care, daddy care.
Yeah. We have a friend who helps us out with babysitting during the day. And then Fayette County, we are one of the few counties in the state that does have in-person education. And so my daughter does go to in-person schools. But her particular school is doing phenomenal with the response. I don't know if you wanted to touch on COVID later on in this conversation, or I can just kind of make a little.
Yeah, please tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah. So from the get-go, it's not necessarily that we need to be in a position of, oh, let's close down everything and no school and everything. From the get-go, we really need to find ourselves in a position of taking it seriously. So it isn't closing everything down, it's taking it seriously. Like I have my daughter in person classrooms at her school. And it's because her school is taking it seriously. They're doing all the social distancing that they need. They're doing all the required mask wearing that they need. And then they have a few kind of structural changes that they did, such as not going to an art classroom for art. So now we're sending the art teacher to their classroom. And so there are rights and wrong ways of doing this.
Mhm.
And it's important that we do it the right way. It's important that we take it seriously. I feel like we can reopen. This is coming from a study of economics and business. COVID is going to be mild in comparison to an economic downturn that we're likely to face, especially with so many people facing eviction and everything. We're at real risk of an economic downturn. And the only way that we get out of this economic downturn is by taking COVID seriously, by masking and socially distancing. And so, as long as we can do that as a business community and as a society, then our economy won't suffer as much. But right now, we're going to be suffering a lot.
So, as we were saying before we were internet interrupted, we were talking about getting our economy pumping again through taking the virus seriously.
Correct.
And if I understood you, you're thinking that if we can respect each other, protect each other, take this virus seriously, that's going to enable our schools to stay open and our businesses to ramp back up sooner than perhaps having a vaccine throughout the county or throughout the country.
We don't even know if there is going to be a vaccine. Everybody's canceling their vaccine trials right now, right? So we don't even know if there will be a vaccine. Don't count on a vaccine. Right now, all we have is each other. And fundamentally, I know it's a politicized issue now, but fundamentally, something like wearing a mask isn't something that you should do because somebody's telling you to do it. You should do it because it means that our main streets can reopen. People can go back to doing their jobs. People need to start associating things like masks and social distancing with people getting back to their jobs, because we have a huge unemployment problem right now. It's actually the number one issue nationally in terms of electoral politics is issues with unemployment. And probably one of the best things that we can do as individuals, especially in Henry County, well, anywhere really.
Anywhere.
Yeah, is take it seriously. Wear masks. Don't do it because somebody's telling you to do it. I'm not a person who's going to tell you to do anything. But if you really like the economy, then let's wear masks.
Yes. And that is the position of the Henry County Chamber of Commerce. We support business and we support wearing masks and social distancing and sanity during this time while we are trying to live is the key, live through COVID. So with that said, and unemployment being such a huge issue now and probably in the near foreseeable future, on November 3rd, if you're our candidate that moves forward to represent, and I want to clarify, represent Hampton is the primary area that you represent, correct?
For Henry County, it's Hampton down 1941, pretty much.
Okay, so
it's kind of like that half or that third of the county.
And what's good for Hampton is good for Henry County. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm basing a lot of my own platform off of what's good for everybody in general. But of course, there are specific things that Henry and Spalding and Fayette counties will need out of me as the representative. But I feel like a lot of my policy positions are blanket benefits for everybody.
Right. Well, that's good. And I'm glad to hear that you've got control over, the issues of the day and how you can assist us to do better and improve. And in closing, I wanted to get your thoughts on, or first, I get your thoughts on, have we covered everything that you wanted to cover or wanted to say to the viewers who are making up their minds between now and November 3rd?
Yeah. Because this is the Chamber of Commerce and because I'm a millennial legislator, a big thing that is big, a policy position that is huge right now nationally. Both sides of the aisle agree with this one policy position, and it's the ending the war on drugs, specifically marijuana. The state is spending up to $73,000 per arrest for marijuana convictions. So we're wasting money on that. The majority of people are in favor of legalizing it. But in terms of just talking between myself and the Chamber of Commerce here, imagine the economic activity that we're going to be able to get out of legalizing things like marijuana, because now we're talking about jobs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how the pipeline works here, but right now, whenever we have things like marijuana illegal, then if somebody wants to purchase and consume marijuana, then they're going to go through a chain, which is ultimately going to fund cartels in Latin America, which is going to increase the violence there, which then is going to send them immigrants from there up to the United States. It's a complicated mix. Instead of sending this money to cartels who use it for violence, why don't we use this money to make shops and manufactories and dispensaries in Henry and Spalding and Fayette counties, bring in jobs, jump on this train. Colorado is half the size that we are, but they just brought in $2 billion of state revenue. $1 billion of state revenue. And so if we're double the size, we might get $2 billion of state revenue going into our coffers, in which case maybe we won't need to talk about infrastructure problems if we have that, if we allocate it right. It's government, right? I'm sure everybody has a story about government and money. So hopefully we can use it for the right way.
Well, that's a unique position, I guess, or one that's not as talked about as much in Georgia. So how have your discussions with the citizens in that respect? What type of feedback are you hearing?
I'm hearing great. If anybody out there is really against this, let me know. We can have a conversation about it. Fundamentally, just ideologically speaking, I feel like a lot of laws are unnecessary. They're intended to keep people down. And so we can expound on that if you kind of want to, because that's something I can talk about a long time about, right? Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, a lot of laws on consumptions are just there just to target people. And we see this throughout, like we see it on alcohol sales, we see it on tobacco sales and stuff like that. Fundamentally, it's not the government's position to put their hands on business interactions like that. You know, it's like they don't need to worry about consumptions, just like they don't need to worry about a bunch of other things, really.
Well, thank you for sharing that opinion, and I'm sure that will raise some new followers for you, and maybe raise some eyebrows too. But all is welcome, right? As long as they vote.
Yeah, and they can find out more about me at WilliamHarris2020.com as well.
Mm-hmm. WilliamHarris2020.com.
Yeah. And so from there, it's like I'm a policy guy. I love doing policy. Back whenever I first started, they wanted me to do generic terms like trustworthiness. But that's not who I am on the inside. I'm definitely a person to where I want to earn votes. I'm not entitled to votes. I'm running on the Democratic ticket. If you don't agree with me, don't vote for me, right? I hope that the vast majority of people out there agree with me, because I feel like I do. I feel like I am putting out policy out there that affects everybody in a very positive way. And
that's where we can go to read your policies in detail if we didn't touch on it today.
Yep.
Okay, well, I have one final question for you, and it has to do with the climate in not just Henry County. It's one that we've been witnessing nationwide.
Okay.
That in many of the races that are taking place that are coming up on November 3rd, there's been a lot of negativity, and the candidates are opposing each other with, it seems, an objective to further divide the communities, the constituencies. And the chamber, we believe that's dangerous, and it actually adds to the challenges before us even more. So I'd like to ask you to give us a positive thing with respect to your opponent, or a positive message that you'd like to share as we close.
Oh, absolutely. So Karen Mathiak, she is dedicated to her job. I feel like the vast majority of people are just doing what they feel is best. Nobody is going out there and even voting or running or anything thinking, I'm going to destroy this community. Nobody's thinking that. Karen and I have disagreements on some things, but these are policy positions. I've never actually officially met Karen, but from all of the conversations that I've heard about her, she's very pleasant. And I'm sure that she would be very pleasant with me. The only spat that we've had so far is that she said that I'm in favor of raising taxes, which is an unfounded statement. I've made a response to that. But even myself, I'm not running negative against her. Again, because I'm policy. I want to earn votes. I earn my votes from telling you things like I want to legalize marijuana and cap insulin prices. Karen Mathiak is we're doing more positive things. But Karen Mathiak has her agenda as well, which is going to, which a lot of people are going to find more favorable than mine.
Mm-hmm.
By all means, vote for her. But go vote, because that's the important part, right?
That is.
Yeah, it's, again, I'm real big on small communities. And as District 73, we're kind of a small community that's joined from smaller communities, right? And so you have to represent yourself by electing the people who you want to represent you. And you have to, say your voice. By all means, Karen shows up to work. She does her job as a state legislator, and she does get a lot of stuff at the county levels. And so she's a hard fighter for the district. But I'm going to be a harder fighter, I think.
I was gonna. How are you going to end this?
Yeah.
Who are you voting for?
Oh, I'm voting for William Harris.